I started a relationship with a few people here the first time I came. Those who work with Udo and me became very, fond of Mr. Udo. We built a very strong bond. Eric Clapton did not break apart in a loud way. He became hard, cold, distant, and inflexible. The warmth that used to be around him steadily faded away, leaving only remoteness and quiet anger. This didn't look like a peaceful blues fan or a wise guitar player. It was the picture of a man who had hurt people and never looked back. Eric Clapton is known as one of the most important guitarists in rock music, but beneath the respect is a history of anger, broken alliances, and moral failures that many rockers never forgot. That dichotomy, where adoration and silent resentment met, would shape every story that came after. Eric Clapton wanted people to be real, yet he didn't show much kindness. Clapton swept through bands like a judgment passed in silence, while others formed brotherhoods. He went away, cut people off, and rewrote stories, which often left individuals behind him confused, hurt, or eliminated. Some people thought he was principled. He was emotionally cruel to certain people. This is not a compliment to Eric Clapton's skill. It looks at why so many rockers stopped like him, and the people who helped him start his career were the first ones to notice that disconnect. Eric Clapton didn't leave the yards without making a noise. He told them to go away. It wasn't just the choice that made his exit so shocking. It was the manner it was given. Clapton didn't say that his leaving was because of a disagreement of opinion or a change in plans. He said that everyone else had done something wrong. Clapton left the band because he didn't like how it was moving toward commercial success. He did this with confidence, making himself the only protector of artistic purity. By doing this, he didn't see his bandmates as people who had chosen a different path. Instead, he saw them as sellouts who had compromised something precious. For those who were left behind, the harm went beyond just being sad. Nato Clapton didn't merely leave a hole. He gave a decision. His leaving meant judgment, not explanation, condemnation, not conversation. This wasn't collaboration falling apart because of stress. It was a show of power. And for many rockers who were paying close attention, it brought up a troubling subject that would haunt Clapton for years. What did loyalty even mean to Eric? If he could so simply throw away the people who helped him develop his career while pretending to be morally superior, what is Clapton's world? That question came up again in his next band and made working together into a fight. There was never a cooperation with Cream. It was a pressure cooker. It may be that it is, the nice, but no. But it was truly about the death of my son that I had to find a solution. I couldn't help but sing. First of all, I didn't want it to be a public. Tension formed the band's invisible backbone as soon as Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce had to work closely together. There was no denying their musical affinity, but there was also no denying the anger that fueled it. Every practice seemed like it was full with energy. There was always a hint of conflict in every session. Jack Bruce was aggressive, outspoken, and moody. He pushed ideas forward without stopping, asking for involvement, emotion, and conversation. Eric Clapton did the opposite. He shut down when he withdrew. He didn't say anything. He wouldn't meet Bruce face to face. That imbalance made something quite disturbing. Clapton's stillness turned into a weapon. It didn't allow for a solution. It kept disagreement from getting out. Bruce's mood swings filled the void, getting louder, sharper, and more frantic as communication broke down. The friction turned into beauty on stage. The band sounded fierce, scary, and full of life. People in the audience heard new things. There was something more going on inside the band. Resentment was hardening. Trust was fading. People's relationships were getting worse because of unsaid anger. The music stopped working, but Cream didn't fall apart. It ended because it was too hard to live with that strain. A psychological stalemate with no way out and no way to fix it. When that pressure finally broke, it didn't bring serenity. It kept the fight going. Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker never got over their bad feelings for each other. It got harder. There was always difficulty in their relationship from the start. Baker was unpredictable, combative, and overtly hostile. Instead of compromising, Clapton chose to leave. A frigid silence that made Baker further angrier. There was always tension during every rehearsal. Every performance felt like a standoff that was about to break out. What made things so scary was that there was no way out. There were no fights that made things apparent, and there were no disagreements that led to understanding. Unspoken hostility lingered, seething just below the surface and polluting everything around it. Clapton would not get involved. Baker wouldn't back down. There was anger between them where there should have been conversation. There were no apologies or attempts to fix things. Only endurance every night, every tour. Musicians were stuck in a band that was held together by success and slowly torn apart by hate. It didn't seem like an end when Cream eventually fell apart. It was like getting away. There was no closure or reconciliation, only scars and the question of how long that enmity had been allowed to fester. And the harm didn't just affect the band. It quickly became more personal. The break that stunned the rock world wasn't a professional one. It was about me. George Harrison was more than just a co-worker. He was a buddy and a confidant who had no problem letting Eric Clapton into his home, his circle, and his trust. Clapton paid back that confidence by being obsessed. He couldn't stop thinking about Pattie Boyd, Harrison's wife. He did it in a way that made everyone around him very uncomfortable. Letters, songs, and confessions came next, and the lines between them disappeared. What started as wanting became chasing. The damage was done when the relationship finally went too far. It didn't simply break up a marriage. It also blew up a friendship that people thought would last forever. Clapton got the girl. He lost the faith. And for a lot of rock fans who were watching from the outside, this event altered everything. People no longer thought of Clapton as a tragic romantic or a tortured soul looking for love. People thought he would betray loyalties, overlook the repercussions, and break personal ties if it meant meeting his own emotional needs. The disturbing question stayed in the air long after the dust had fallen. What did that mean for everyone else in Eric Clapton's life if he could do this to someone as close to him as George Harrison? After that, he couldn't find a stable place. To start over, Clapton didn't merely quit bands. He left them behind. Blind Faith was supposed to be a supergroup, a statement, and a fresh start. When Cream broke up, it turned into a pressure chamber instead. Expectations went through the roof. People looked more closely, and Clapton left nearly right away. He didn't want to be in the spotlight, didn't want to commit, and didn't give any comfort to those who were attempting to keep the project going. The band didn't fall apart because they weren't good enough. It fell apart because of a lack of emotion. Derek, the dominoes went down a darker path. Addiction got stronger. Obsession made it hard to think clearly. Recording sessions got out of hand because of pain instead of goal. Clapton's bandmates saw him get more and more lost in himself, more and more inaccessible, more and more unpredictable. They had to deal with pandemonium that they didn't make, plans that didn't work out, promises that weren't kept, and an emotional burden that wasn't his. When the damage became too bad to fix, Clapton did what he usually did. He went back. No explanations, no accounting, just space. Again, at that point, the pattern was too clear to miss, and his peers were already noticing it. As time went on, adoration turned into discomfort, and then into something quieter, heavier, and much more disturbing. Clapton's public pronouncements became harsher, his opinions became more inflexible and uncompromising, and he said them without hesitation or worry about how deeply they cut. Other musicians observed as the man who was once known for his emotional depth displayed little interest in conversation, nuance, or thinking about himself. Attempts to argue with him didn't work. Conversations stopped before they even started. Instead of engaging with criticism, people withdrew. A pattern began to show itself. Rockers kept talking to Eric Clapton because they agreed with him. They stopped because they thought it would be fruitless and maybe even hurtful to confront him. Silence became a way to protect oneself. The invitations went away. The distance got bigger. People who used to stand next to him chose to step back because they didn't want to get into a fight with a man who never moved, explained, or softened, not just what Clapton said, but also what he didn't do subsequently. Made a lot of people uneasy. No accounting, no second thoughts, no building bridges. The question stayed in the rock community's mind. How can someone who is so good at expressing their feelings become so hard to reach? And why did so many people think it was safer to just go than to say anything? The distance didn't turn into a scandal. It got comfortable and started growing. Finally, the quiet called for a different question, one that wasn't about other people but about Clapton himself. Eric Clapton beat his addiction. That story has been told, retold, and made holy. What happened next is much less comfortable. Being sober made things clear, and being clear made things real.